The Senator from Fairfax City, Senator Petersen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also rise on a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I also want to echo the comments made by the Senator from Henrico. And I also want to recognize the governor for standing up a couple days ago and recognizing that we have an issue with transportation in this funding in this state and proposing a solution. And I want to thank him for doing that. I represent the I-66 corridor in western Fairfax County, which is probably the epicenter of traffic congestion in Virginia, and my constituents stand to benefit. Having said that, Mr. President, I have to tell you that having gone through the details of the governor's plan, I find them somewhat baffling. The elimination of the gas tax, replacing that with a sales tax of effectively a 1% across-the-board increase, and then a $100 fee on alternative vehicles. I will tell you, Mr. President, I have had more town halls on transportation, well, over the past 10 years as anybody. And I have talked to people across the political spectrum, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green, and I will tell you that to the person, they all believe that transportation ought to be funded on a user fee approach, which ironically was the same approach that was taken by the gentleman who has a statue dedicated to him as we walk over to the state capitol, Harry Byrd, the gentleman from Winchester, back in the 1920s when we created a state highway administration. And we've had a user fee approach for years, and my constituents understand that, and they agree with that. Now, whether that user fee ought to be a gas tax or tolling or titling tax or a matrix thereof, we can have a long discussion on that. But I've never had anyone propose to me that we ought to move away from a user fee approach and move to a general fund approach. In that respect, Mr. President, I note that raising taxes across the board by 1% in the sales tax, including on people that don't even drive and don't even have a driver's license, is the essence of a top-down, big government, inefficient solution, which I believe we should be getting away from in this body. Again, there's no need for people that don't drive a car to have to pay higher taxes on consumer goods in order to subsidize those people that do drive cars. And most of my constituents, by the way, do drive cars. I don't believe that makes sense. I believe that's an inefficient allocation of resources. Finally, Mr. President, and I've already talked about sort of the free market arguments, but I will say as a person that drives a hybrid and as a person that supports alternative technologies for powering vehicles, the combustion engine vehicle is not going anywhere, folks. I represent over 30 auto dealers in my district, especially in Fairfax City. I've talked to many of them. And I don't see the electric car market becoming more than 1% of the market in the foreseeable future. The bottom line is people will be buying gasoline. There's as many gasoline stores out there now as there were 10 years ago. And even those of us that drive a hybrid, yes, believe it or not, we buy gasoline also. So again, I'm not saying that the gas tax is the panacea to all evils, to all problems, nor am I saying that we don't need to come up with a mixed approach, but simply doing away with a tax altogether because someone has suddenly decided that it's outdated, that idea itself is illogical to me. So again, I'm going to end as I began, Mr. President, by thanking the governor for putting this forward. However, I do find the details baffling, and I'm hoping that we can straighten that out as we go along. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator.